I caught my fiancé cheating with my brother 48 hours before the wedding. I didn't cancel the wedding. What I did shocked everyone. I was standing at the altar, dressed in a white suit I had paid for with my last calm breath, when I looked across the room and saw my brother staring back at me like a man already caught. My hands were shaking. The guests were smiling. The music was soft. And my fiancé was holding my arm, whispering, "You okay?" That was the moment everything inside me split in two. Because just 48 hours earlier, I had caught her cheating with my own brother. And I still didn't cancel the wedding. Before I go on, let me ask you something real quick. If this story pulls you in even a little, tap the like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I promise you, this is not one of those stories you hear and forget. Now listen closely because what happened next shocked everyone, including me. I was supposed to be the happiest man alive. My name is Eli. I'm 30 years old. I work hard, I love deeply, and until 2 days before my wedding, I believed trust was something you built once and kept forever. My fiancée's name is Miriam. She was gentle in the way that makes you feel safe. The kind of woman who touched your arm when she laughed, who remembered small things, who prayed before meals even when no one else did. When I met her, I felt chosen. Not lucky. Chosen. And my brother, my younger brother, his name is Jonah. Jonah was always the bright one. The funny one. The one people leaned toward in a room. Growing up, he followed me everywhere. Borrowed my clothes. Copied my jokes. I never minded. I was proud of him. I trusted him with my life. 2 days before the wedding, I left work early because Miriam had asked me to pick up a box of printed vows she forgot at the apartment. She sounded nervous on the phone. Too nervous. I remember unlocking the door and noticing how quiet it was. No music. No humming. Just still air. I called her name. No answer. I took a few steps inside and froze. There were shoes by the door that didn't belong to me. Men's shoes. Jonah's shoes. My chest tightened so fast I thought I might pass out. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just stood there, staring, hoping my mind was lying to me. I walked down the hall slowly. The bedroom door was closed. I pushed it open. And there they were. Miriam was on the bed, wrapped in the sheets like she was cold, even though the room was warm. Jonah was standing beside her, pulling on his shirt, his face pale and wet like he'd been crying. No one spoke. The world felt like it stopped breathing. "I can explain," Miriam said. That sentence hurt more than the sight. Jonah opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I don't remember what my face looked like, but I remember how calm my voice sounded when I said, "How long?" They looked at each other. That was answer enough. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't punch the wall. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. That night, I slept in my car. I watched the lights of the city flicker and thought about every family dinner, every joke, every moment I let Jonah stand close to the woman I loved. By morning, my phone was full of messages. Miriam begged. Jonah apologized. My mother asked if I was okay. My father said nothing at all. The wedding was still on everyone's calendar. 48 hours. People kept saying the same thing. Cancel it now. But something strange was happening inside me. I didn't feel loud anger. I felt quiet clarity. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized something that scared me even more than betrayal. They thought I was weak. They thought I would explode, disappear, or forgive without questions. They didn't know me at all. Miriam came back to the apartment that evening. Her eyes were red. Her voice was soft. She sat across from me like a child waiting for punishment. "It was a mistake," she said. "I swear it meant nothing." Jonah stood behind her, his head down. I looked at them both and felt something shift. I smiled. "I need time," I said. "But the wedding is still happening." Their faces changed. Relief washed over them so fast it made me sick. That was when I knew. They didn't love me. They loved escaping the consequences. The next day was a blur of rehearsals and phone calls and fake smiles. I watched Jonah laugh with cousins. I watched Miriam practice walking down the aisle. No one knew the truth. Not yet. That night, Jonah knocked on my door. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "Please don't do this." "Do what?" I asked. He couldn't answer. On the morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized myself. I looked calm, clean, ready. But inside, something sharp was waiting. The music started. The guests stood. Miriam walked toward me, glowing, hopeful, unaware that the ground beneath her was already breaking. She took my hand, and just before the vows began, I leaned close and whispered something that made her breath catch. Her fingers tightened around mine. And that was the moment I knew what I was about to do would change everything. Her fingers tightened around mine so hard it almost hurt. For a split second, I thought she might pull away. Run. Scream. Confess. But she didn't. She forced a smile and whispered back, "Eli, please. Not today." Those words stayed in my head as the pastor cleared his throat and began speaking about love, faith, and forever. His voice sounded far away, like it was coming from underwater. The room was full, but I felt alone, standing between two people who had already chosen to break me. I looked out at the crowd. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, smiling like her prayers had finally been answered. My father sat beside her, hands folded, face calm and proud. He nodded at me once, slow and steady, like he always did when he wanted to say, "You're doing the right thing." Jonah stood near the front too. My brother. My blood. He wouldn't look at me. His eyes stayed on the floor, his jaw tight, his hands clenched. Anyone else would have thought he was nervous for me. Only I knew the truth. The pastor asked the guests to sit. Miriam was still holding my hand. Her palm was cold and damp. She leaned closer, her veil brushing my cheek, and whispered again, "We'll talk after. Please." I nodded slowly, like everything was fine. Inside, something twisted. The ceremony went on. Words about commitment filled the air. People laughed softly at the right moments. A baby cried somewhere in the back. Life kept moving like nothing was wrong. But every word felt like a lie being spoken out loud. The pastor turned to me. "Eli, do you take Miriam to be your lawfully wedded wife?" My heart began to pound. This was the moment everyone remembers. This was the moment I had imagined 1,000 times. Me smiling. Her crying happy tears. Applause. Cheers. I looked at Miriam. Her eyes were shiny, hopeful, afraid. I saw it then, clear as day. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of being exposed. "I do," I said. A soft wave of relief moved through the room. My mother smiled wider. Miriam let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Jonah closed his eyes. The pastor nodded and turned to Miriam. "Miriam, do you take Eli?" "I do," she said quickly, almost too quickly. People laughed softly. Someone whispered, "They're so in love." I felt sick. The vows began. Miriam went first. She spoke about how she knew from the moment we met that I was different. How I made her feel safe. How she trusted me with her whole heart. Every word landed like a small cut. When it was my turn, I took a breath. This was the part. This was where everything would either fall apart or begin. "I used to think love was simple," I said. My voice echoed through the room. Calm. Steady. Too steady. I thought if you loved someone enough, if you trusted them enough, that would be enough. People leaned in. Miriam's smile froze just a little. I believed love meant never having to doubt. Never having to look over your shoulder. Never wondering if the people closest to you were hiding something. A few guests nodded. Someone whispered, "That's beautiful." I looked straight at Jonah. His face had gone pale. "But I learned something this week." I continued. "I learned that love without honesty is just a story people tell to feel better about their choices." The room shifted. Miriam's hand began to tremble in mine. I felt it. I felt her fear rise. The pastor frowned slightly, unsure. "I also learned," I said, "that sometimes the people who smile at you the most are the ones hurting you the deepest." There it was. The line. The air changed. Murmurs spread through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Miriam leaned close, her voice shaking. Eli, stop. Please. I turned to her and smiled softly. You told me you loved me, I said. You told me you trusted me. Her eyes filled with tears. And I believed you, I said quietly. Then I turned back to the guests. 2 days ago, I said, I came home early. The room went silent. My mother's smile faded. I walked into my bedroom. I continued, and found my fiancé in bed with my brother. Gasps exploded across the room. Someone cried out. Chairs scraped. Hands flew to mouths. My mother stood up, so fast her chair tipped backward. Eli, what are you saying? Miriam let go of my hand and stepped back like I had pushed her. Jonah stumbled to his feet. Eli, please. Sit down, I said, my voice calm but sharp. He froze. I didn't cancel the wedding, I said, because I needed to understand something. The pastor stepped back slowly, stunned. I needed to see, I went on, who would stand here today pretending nothing happened. Miriam was crying now. Full sobs. I'm sorry, she said over and over. I'm so sorry. The room was chaos. Voices everywhere. Confusion. Anger. Shock. But I wasn't done. I raised my hand, and slowly, the noise softened. I didn't do this to embarrass anyone, I said. I did this because lies grow in silence. I turned to Jonah. You were my brother, I said. You were my best friend. And you looked me in the eye every day knowing what you did. Jonah shook his head, tears falling. I hate myself, he whispered. My father stood up then. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. Is this true? Jonah couldn't answer. That was answer enough. Miriam fell to her knees. The pastor said nothing. I stepped back from the altar and took off the ring. The one Miriam had cried over when I first gave it to her. I placed it gently on the table. I won't marry a lie, I said. And I walked away. Behind me, the room exploded again. But the story didn't end there. Because the truth has a way of following you home. That night, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages poured in from family, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some supported me. Some blamed me. Some said I went too far. Miriam sent dozens of texts. Long ones. Short ones. Voice notes filled with tears. Jonah sent just one message. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to talk. I didn't reply. I went to my childhood home instead. My parents sat at the kitchen table when I arrived. The same table where Jonah and I used to do homework, where my mother prayed over meals, where my father taught us how to be men. My mother cried when she saw me. Why didn't you tell us? She asked. I needed to know who they really were, I said. My father nodded slowly. Sometimes the truth needs a stage. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The looks on their faces. The shock. The silence after. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Because early the next morning there was a knock at the door. Slow. Heavy. When I opened it, Miriam was standing there. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair messy. She looked smaller somehow. I need to tell you something, she said. Something in her voice made my stomach drop. Before I could answer, Jonah stepped out from behind her. And that's when I realized there was more they hadn't told me yet. I stood there staring at them, my fiancé and my brother, side by side on my parents' porch like they had planned it. The morning air was cold, but my hands were warm, burning, like my body already knew something worse was coming. Miriam spoke first. Her voice was low. Careful. Eli, please don't shut the door. Jonah wouldn't look at me. He stared at the ground, rubbing his hands together like a child about to be punished. I stepped aside without saying a word and let them in. The house smelled like old coffee and wood polish. The same smell from my childhood. It felt wrong to bring this mess inside a place that once felt safe. They sat on the couch, close but not touching. That small space between them felt louder than words. My mother stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, her face tight. My father stayed seated at the table, watching everything like a judge who already knew the verdict but wanted to hear the truth anyway. I stayed standing. Miriam swallowed hard. "There's something you don't know," she said. I laughed once. Short and sharp. "That's impressive," I said. "Because I already know more than I ever wanted." She flinched. Jonah finally looked up. His eyes were red. "Eli, I swear we never wanted to hurt you." "That's funny," I said. "Because you did." Silence filled the room. Miriam took a breath. "I found out something last night," she said. "Something that changes everything." My stomach tightened. She looked at Jonah, then back at me. "I'm pregnant." The room tilted. For a moment, no one spoke. No one moved. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. My mother let out a sound between a gasp and a prayer. My father stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. I felt like I was falling, but there was no ground. "Congratulations," I said quietly. "Which one of us is the father?" Miriam burst into tears. Jonah stood up fast. "It's not what you think," he said. "We don't know yet." That was worse. I ran my hand over my face. My chest felt tight, like something heavy was sitting on it. "So you came here," I said, "to tell me this?" Miriam nodded. "I didn't want you to hear it from someone else." I stared at her. This woman I was supposed to build a life with. The woman who prayed beside me. The woman who said she loved me. "Do you understand?" I said slowly. "How cruel that sounds." She reached for me. I stepped back. My father spoke then, his voice calm, but shaking underneath. "You both need to leave." Jonah opened his mouth. "Dad." "Now," my father said. They left without another word. The door closed behind them with a soft click. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed I used to share with Jonah when we were kids, staring at the wall. Every memory felt dirty now. Every laugh. Every holiday photo. Every moment I trusted him. The next day, the town knew. News spreads fast when a wedding turns into a scandal. People stared when I went to the store. Some nodded with pity. Some avoided my eyes. Some whispered like my pain was a show they paid to see. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from friends. From family. From strangers who had heard what happened. Miriam's sister called me crying, begging me to talk to her. Jonah's friends texted saying he was destroyed and needed help. No one asked how I was. By the third day, something strange happened. I stopped crying. Not because it didn't hurt anymore, but because something else took its place. Focus. I started replaying moments in my head. Little things I had ignored. Miriam staying late at church events Jonah attended. Jonah suddenly knowing things about our relationship he shouldn't have known. The way they avoided each other's eyes at dinner. It wasn't sudden. It was planned. That night, Miriam sent me a long message. Pages of words. Apologies. Excuses. Promises. At the end, she wrote, "Please don't destroy our lives." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Destroy. Like I was the one who broke something. I replied with one sentence. "Meet me tomorrow." Alone. She agreed immediately. We met at a small park near the river. The same place I proposed to her a year ago. She showed up wearing a jacket I had given her. That hurt more than anything she said. She sat down slowly. "Thank you for meeting me." "I didn't do it for you," I said. She nodded. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the water move. "I loved you," she said finally. I looked at her. Loved. Her eyes filled with tears. "I still do. But things got confusing." I laughed softly. People always say that when they get caught. She wiped her face. Jonah made me feel seen. There it was. The oldest excuse in the world. And I didn't. I asked. "You did," she said quickly. "That's what makes this so hard." I stood up. "We're done." Her head snapped up. "Eli, wait. There's more." I froze. She took a deep breath. "Jonah told me something last night." I turned slowly. "What?" She looked scared now. Really scared. He said he's been in love with me since before you proposed." The words landed heavy. "How long did you know?" I asked. She hesitated. That pause told me everything.
"You knew," I said.
"And you still said yes to me." She cried harder. I walked away. Behind me, she called my name over and over. I didn't turn around. That evening, Jonah showed up at the house alone. My father answered the door. I heard raised voices. Then silence. Jonah came into the living room slowly. He looked broken, smaller, like the weight of his choices had finally reached him. "I never meant for it to go this far," he said. I stared at him. "You loved her before I proposed?" He nodded. "And you said nothing." He nodded again. "And you still stood beside me like my brother." He broke down then. Full sobs. I didn't know how to stop. I felt something crack inside me. Not anger. Grief. "You didn't trip into this," I said. "You walked into it." He looked up. "What are you going to do?" That was the first honest question anyone had asked me. "I don't know yet," I said. "But I won't carry this alone." The next morning, I got a call that made my blood run cold. It was the pastor. "Eli," he said carefully, "there's something you need to know. Miriam came to see me last night." I sat down. "She told me things," he continued, "about the wedding.
"About what you said."
And about what you're planning." My heart started racing. "What did she say?" There was a pause. "She said you're hiding something. Something that could ruin everyone." My grip tightened on the phone. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Miriam thought she knew my next move. And she was wrong. Very wrong. The pastor's words stayed in my head long after the call ended. "She said you're hiding something. Something that could ruin everyone." I sat there holding my phone, staring at the wall, feeling something close to amusement rise in my chest. Not laughter. Not joy. Something darker. Something calm. Miriam thought she knew me. That was her last mistake. I went for a long walk that morning. I needed air. The town felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. Everywhere I went, people knew my story, or at least the version they liked best. Some thought I was cruel for exposing Miriam and Jonah at the altar. Some thought I was brave. Some thought I should forgive and move on. No one knew what it felt like to wake up every morning realizing the two people you trusted most had been sharing secrets behind your back for months. Trust doesn't break loudly. It leaks out slowly. That afternoon, I went back to the apartment I once shared with Miriam. She hadn't taken everything yet. Her shoes were still by the door. Her favorite mug sat in the sink. The bed was neatly made, like no one had ever betrayed anyone there. I sat on the couch and closed my eyes. And then I saw it clearly. Not revenge. Truth. If lies had built this mess, then truth would tear it down. Piece by piece. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. Messages. Photos. Old voice notes. Things I had ignored before. Things that felt normal at the time. Jonah's name popped up again and again. Late-night calls. Long texts. Deleted messages. I felt stupid. But stupidity fades. Clarity doesn't. That evening, my mother knocked softly on the door. She sat beside me, holding my hand like she used to when I was a boy. "I raised you to be honest," she said. "But be careful. Truth cuts everyone, including the one holding it." I nodded. "I know." She looked at me for a long moment. "Are you okay?"
I thought about that.
"No," I said. "But I will be." That night, I got another message from Miriam. "The pastor says you're planning something. Please don't hurt Jonah. Please don't hurt the baby." The baby. That word still felt unreal. I didn't reply. The next day, Jonah asked to meet me. I agreed. We met at the old basketball court where we used to play as kids. The paint was cracked now. The net was torn. Everything aged, just like us. Jonah looked tired. His shoulders slumped. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. "I know you hate me," he said. "I don't hate you," I replied. "I just don't recognize you." He swallowed hard. "Miriam thinks you're planning to tell everyone something. Something private." I tilted my head. "And?" "She's scared," he said. I'm scared. That almost made me laugh. You should be, I said calmly. Jonah stepped closer. Eli, whatever you're thinking, please. Our family is already broken. I looked him straight in the eyes. You broke it. I'm just refusing to pretend it isn't. His face twisted. What do you want from me? There it was. The question everyone eventually asks. I want the truth, I said. All of it. He hesitated. I waited. Finally he spoke. It didn't start the way you think. They always say that. She came to me first, he said quickly. She was lonely. She said you were distant. My jaw tightened. She cried, he continued. She said she felt invisible. I shook my head slowly. And you thought sleeping with her would fix that? He dropped his eyes. I thought I loved her. I stepped closer. No, I said softly. You loved what she took from me. That hit him harder than yelling ever could. Jonah wiped his face. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell the truth, I said. And if that destroys something built on lies, so be it. He looked terrified. When? I smiled faintly. Soon. That night, the pastor called again. Eli, he said, people are asking questions. Miriam's family. Jonah's friends. They think you're planning to expose something else. I am, I said. He sighed. Please remember forgiveness. Forgiveness comes after honesty, I replied. There was silence on the line. The next morning, I received an email from Miriam. Not begging. Threatening. If you say what you're planning to say, I will tell them what you did too. My heart skipped. What I did. I read it again. And again. I realized then how desperate she was. And desperation makes people dangerous. I drove straight to her sister's house. Miriam opened the door slowly. Her eyes widened when she saw me. We need to talk, I said. She stepped aside. Her sister stayed in the other room, pretending not to listen. Miriam crossed her arms. You're enjoying this, she said. No, I replied. I'm finishing it. Her voice shook. You think you're innocent in all this? I raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? She took a step closer. You weren't perfect. You ignored me. You chose work over me. You made me feel small. I nodded. And instead of talking to me, you slept with my brother. She flinched. You don't get to rewrite the story, I said. Her eyes filled with anger. If you tell them everything, I'll tell them your secret. My chest tightened. What's secret? She smiled thinly. You know. I didn't. But I couldn't show that. I leaned in slightly. Say it. She hesitated. That hesitation told me something important. She was bluffing. Do it, I said quietly. Say it out loud. Her confidence cracked. I just know things, she said. Things you wouldn't want public. I stepped back. You're afraid, I said. Because you don't know what I know. Her face went pale. What do you know? She whispered. I didn't answer. I walked out. That night I gathered everything. Screenshots. Messages. Dates. Proof. Not to shame. To end the lies. As I sat there organizing it all, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Eli, a woman's voice said. You don't know me, but I need to talk to you about Miriam and Jonah. My heart stopped. Who is this? I asked. My name is Ruth, she said. And there's something you should know before you tell your story. I swallowed hard. What is it? There was a pause. Then she said, You're not the only one they betrayed. And in that moment, I realized the story was far bigger than I ever imagined. I asked Ruth to meet me the next morning. I barely slept that night. My mind kept racing, trying to imagine who she was and how she fit into the mess my life had become. I replayed her words again and again. You're not the only one they betrayed. By sunrise, my chest felt heavy, like I already knew the truth, but wasn't ready to hear it out loud. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. The kind of place people go when they don't want to be seen. Ruth was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She looked ordinary. Mid-30s. Tired eyes. calm face. The kind of woman you wouldn't notice in a crowd. Until she looked up at me. There was pain in her eyes. Old pain. Eli, she asked softly. I nodded and sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she took a breath.
I was with Jonah, she said.
For almost 2 years. The words landed slow. Before Miriam?
I asked.
She nodded. Before.
During.
And after. My hands clenched under the table. I didn't know about Miriam at first, Ruth continued. He told me he was single. Lonely. That his family didn't understand him. I almost laughed at how familiar that sounded. When did you find out?
I asked. 3 months ago, she said.
I saw a photo of you and Miriam online. Engagement announcement. Asked him about it. And
I said.
He cried, she replied. He said he was confused. Said he loved us both. Said he would end it with her. My jaw tightened. He didn't, she said quietly. No, I said.
He didn't.
Ruth looked down at her hands. I found out she was pregnant last week. Not from him. From someone at church. The room felt smaller. I went to confront Miriam, Ruth said. She told me Jonah was lying to both of us. That he promised her the same things. I leaned back slowly. How long did Miriam know about you? I asked. Ruth hesitated. Longer than I knew about her. That was it. The final piece. The truth wasn't just betrayal. It was planning. They didn't fall into this. They built it. Together. Ruth reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. I have messages, she said.
Dates. Proof.
I didn't want revenge. I just didn't want you thinking you were crazy. I nodded. Thank you. As I stood to leave, she looked up at me. What are you going to do now?
I thought about that.
I'm going to finish telling the truth, I said. That afternoon, I called a family meeting. Everyone came. My parents. Jonah. Miriam. Even her parents. No shouting. No insults. Just a room full of people who couldn't run anymore. I stood in the center of the living room and spoke slowly. I didn't ruin this family, I said. I revealed it.
Jonah tried to speak.
I raised my hand. I loved you both, I said. And you both chose to lie. Over and over. I turned to Miriam. You said I was hiding something. I wasn't. I was trusting you. Her mother began to cry. I looked at Jonah one last time. You didn't just betray me, I said. You betrayed who we were supposed to be. Then I handed them everything. The proof. The messages. Ruth's story. No yelling followed. Just silence. That was louder than anything. In the weeks that followed, the town moved on. People always do. Miriam left town. Jonah moved out. Ruth found peace somewhere far from all of us. And me? I learned something I never wanted to learn. Love is not proven by how much pain you can survive. It's proven by how much truth you're willing to face. Some nights still hurt. Some memories still sting. But I wake up knowing this. I didn't cancel the wedding because I wanted revenge. I let it happen because I wanted freedom. And I finally got it. If this story moved you, please subscribe to this channel to support our growth.